VHS, the Vancouver Hockey Show. Andrew Wadden, producer Aaron, along here with you for another week. And it's a shortened week for us, right? What do you smell? What's that?
You smell that?
What is it?
I smell roast duck. Is that in the oven?
Ah.
Well, it's Easter, man. You having roast duck for Easter dinner?
Yeah, we're recording this just after the Canucks edged the Anaheim Ducks because they had to get out of that one, considering they almost blew a 2-0. Well, they did blow a 2-0 lead, but they're able to pull it out of the fire. We'll get to that in just a second here. As, again, like I said, it's a shortened week for us. So just 1-1 this week because we already skipped the Monday game because, well, we skipped our Monday podcast. So let's get into it. Let's rewind the week as we do each and every week here. Thursday, a 3-1 loss to the Dallas Stars. And then, as mentioned, a 3-2 edging of the Anaheim Ducks as they able to crawl by the lowly Ducks. But let's wheel it all the way back to Thursday against a team that, listen, at some point you could see in the postseason in the Dallas Stars. And 5-on-5, good game from the Canucks. Special teams were the difference in this. And we've talked about how the power play for the Canucks has not been very good since the All-Star break, one of the worst in the league. I believe it was like ranked 29th or so going into the game on Sunday against Anaheim. There's some good stuff to like about the game against the Stars, though. Dakota Joshua returning to the lineup was a massive boost. And, as we see here in the Anaheim game, I mean, he was such a big contributor to that. Connor Garland was really good in the game against Dallas as well. Loved his work on that goal for JT Miller. Now, I know that I mentioned last week, listen, let's just stop griping about the officials, but the officiating in the NHL has just been, it's pretty awful recently. And in that game, for instance, just the Jason Robertson high stick where the Stars scored and they had to wheel it all the way back and take a look at whether it was a high stick to keep it in the zone. I mean, Aaron, I don't know about you, it looked like a high stick.
Yeah. I mean, that was as high up there as a guy swinging at something out of the strike zone. It was just,
but it's almost like they're trying to find an angle that defines that it's not, right? So, we got one. Oh, it can't be. And you're like, really, guys? So I like the fact that they're getting things right in the NHL, so I don't mind, challenges and whatnot. But sometimes it's just ridiculous. And when it goes back to Toronto and they take a look at it and everybody else is going, that's a high stick. And then it comes back that, no, it's good. So it's a head scratcher, whatever. It didn't cost them the game. The special teams really cost them the game. And then that late power play by Dallas where they're able to seal it with Victoria's Jamie Benn finishing things off. That's a big win for the Stars. They're rolling right now, by the way, too. I believe they've won 7 straight. So tough loss for the Canucks, but they move on. And they have a rare Saturday night off. So that means a Saturday night off for us as well. And then Sunday afternoon matinee affair against the Anaheim Ducks, which interesting.
Only game in the NHL.
Yeah. I think that had something to do with the Final Four and also Easter, perhaps. Maybe people's attention just isn't there. I know there was 8 games played in the men's Final Four tournament today.
There were a couple concerts at Rogers Arena this week too. They had to practice at UBC, right? So
yeah, well, if you have a Saturday night off, they're booking that rink out or booking the arena out, 100%. So against the Ducks, Nikita Zadorov is a healthy scratch. Now we've seen Ian Cole be a healthy scratch recently, and they've got this sort of rotation. And I know that Talk doesn't like that word, but they've got a bit of a rotation going with the defenseman now. Interesting, though, that it was Zadorov that gets the healthy scratch. Maybe it's just a maintenance game, too, right? Let's keep in mind here. This is a team that, if they have any sort of ambition to be, make a big run in the playoffs, saving these guys for 1 game, 2 games here and there, this could be beneficial moving forward, especially with the way things that ramp up come playoff time. But in this game, Artur Silovs gets his first start of the season. And we knew it was coming at some point. Casey DeSmith has been good for the Canucks, and Silovs came. I thought he was good today. I didn't think he stole the game.
I mean, in the third period, he didn't have any help. So,
oh my God, that third period was so sloppy. And it's a good thing they played the Ducks because they were able to pull out the W because it's the Ducks. Can I have a small gripe about Artur Silovs though before we just sort of finish off what this game was like? The mask. It's got the Abby Canucks mask. I know it had the Canucks logo on the side, but it's got the Johnny Canuck on the front, which is essentially now Abby Canucks. Aaron, if I was one of these goaltenders, and I used to play in goal. And I love swag. Like, I like, they say look good, feel good. I love that stuff. So if I'm Artur Silovs and I'm going into this season, there's a very good chance at some point I'm going to get pulled up to the big club. I mean, if Casey DeSmith falters, there's a chance you could be the backup goaltender. But as we know, Casey DeSmith didn't. So to me, I'd have two masks ready. I'd have my NHL mask. I'd have my AHL mask. Now, some people might be like, well, it's equipment and goaltenders and they're weirdos and they want,
there's
they
some
don't want to change
superstition
things.
thing like guys
Come
who don't
on,
wash
man.
their hat.
It's a freaking mask. Come on.
Speaking of guys not washing hats, how grimy is JT Miller's hat in postgame now?
That's
Ugh.
intended. That's intended.
Ugh.
By the way, that's a little bit of a soapbox, so I'll get down off it. But I thought Artur Silovs was fine. I thought he was fine today. I didn't think he was. He wasn't a difference in the game, right? Which is probably what you want when you're, the third in the depth chart. But Dakota Joshua, what a game! I mean, he just brings such an element to the team.
Welcome back, man. Like we.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful goal in that first one. Looking just between the legs, doing the
minimal effort.
hands
So
there.
it's like,
Well, that has something to do with that. It's the Anaheim Ducks, and clearing the front of the net might be a bit of an issue for them. But I also really love Connor Garland on the setup as well for the second goal, which was the game winner. And it reminded me of the goal of JT Miller, a little spin behind the net there, backhand sauce. There it is, back of the net.
Mm-hmm.
So Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua, I mean, there's a duo right there that you do not want to split up. I know that they've seen different center icemen. They had JT Miller today.
Garland had a pretty good time with Petey and Hogs. So, while Dakota was away. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Garland was flirting with others while his boy Dak was away there. But no, at this point, you keep those guys together. Boy, do they have some chemistry. You mentioned the Canucks in the third period. Yeah, defensively, they were awful. And I remember pulling up Natural Stat Trick to take a look at the analytics midway through the period, and it was all Ducks. But then it flips. Now, it could have got worse for the Canucks, though, because they blow that 2-goal lead. It's 2-2, 5 minutes to go in the third period. And that tripping call on Juleson was awful. Completely awful. Again, go back to griping about the officiating. But it was awful. I mean, I believe it was Vetrano, who was kind of on the edges of his skates at that point anyway, a little, stick in there, and they say it's a tripping call. It didn't cost the Canucks in the end. But at one point I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, are they going to fall here? The crowd
remembered even after the TV timeout.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy, they let them hear it.
Hey, listen, a Canuck fan scorn? Oh, my God, of course. They are the most scorned of any of them in the league, but rightfully so in that point. And that was an awful call. Didn't cost them in the end, but heck of a game there for Dakota Joshua. So now we put a bit of a bow on that week. And if you want to wind the LA game back into it, although we sort of unpacked that on the last podcast, that's a 2-1 week, or excuse me, 1-2 week for the Canucks with the just single win against the Anaheim Ducks. I don't know about you, Aaron. I don't love the way the Canucks are playing right now.
There is zero reason why the Ducks should have had those 2 goals in the third period. Like
the second goal by Joshua, just take a look at the defensive breakdown by the Ducks.
Yeah.
2 defensemen and like Cam Fowler's one of them. And Cam Fowler's like, I get it. That team is average age is probably, I think it's the lowest in the league. It's got to be with the amount of youngsters that they have.
I think they're just above Montreal.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But Cam Fowler, he's a vet, and they just left Dakota Joshua. They both went to Garland. And then Joshua's there all alone. I'm kind of wondering too, like Cam Fowler, a little veteran move, like, oh, I make a mistake here back of the net. We don't have to play any extra hockey and we can get the hell out of here. I don't know. Just saying. Like, it's not like they have anything to play for this year anyway. So.
Need to get home to mom's cooking back in Anaheim.
Perhaps. Man. I don't know where the Ducks are headed to next, but I'll put it this way. Thanks to Fowler, and I don't know whose deep hair was there. They were able to get it out quick enough. But again, just going back to that week, like, you lose in regulation to Dallas. You lose in regulation to the LA Kings as well. Like, those are playoff teams, man. Those are playoff teams. And you want to wheel it back to those 3 games that they had, or 3 wins in a row that they had before the LA game. Well, who is that? Buffalo, Montreal, Calgary. I mean, games that you have to win. Those are must wins. Like the game against Anaheim was. So not loving the way that things are shaping up for them, but the week ahead, that'll be a test for the Canucks with Vegas, Arizona and LA all out on the road as they capped off that 9-game homestand. Speaking of the 9-game homestand, I'm not a fan.
No.
I'm not a fan at all. It's too long. I think they had an 8-game last year. I think we talked about this on a pod a couple of weeks ago, right before they started the 9-gamer. It's too much. And I'm not making excuses for the Canucks. What did they finish up on that anyway? They had 4 losses, but one of them was in overtime. So they end up on top of things, but still, it's too long. It is too much. So hopefully we'll see something different from the Canucks here, and we're going to have to see it because, look at the opponents ahead. As I mentioned, you got Vegas, you got Arizona, whatever, LA next week. Like 2 teams that you could face in the first round. They're jockeying for position right now.
And my goodness, I hope they've studied the tape on LA from when they were in town, because
I saw a video. It must have been from last year, but it was Landeskog, Gabriel Landeskog yelling from the bench at Todd McClellan, who's not even the head coach of the Kings anymore. So it must have been from last year. Maybe I can't. I don't think Landeskog has played this year, so it must have been from last. Regardless, he's just yelling, "Can we play some hockey? Like, you guys are this isn't hockey." And that's what the Kings do. They want to suck the life out of every game. So you talk about studying them, sure, study them all you want. But when they sit there and put a wall up in the neutral zone, like you're going to have to really figure that out, how to get through that. Regardless, I would rather see Vegas in the first round, I think, for the Canucks. I just think in terms of entertainment. Mm-hmm. But if you're a Canuck fan, you're probably like, whoa.
No, I'm with you. Pick between LA and Vegas. I'm going Vegas.
It's not going to matter. Round. This is the thing about the West this year is that everybody that is getting in are good, right? So pick your poison, really. But the Canucks are in. Like, we know that it's 100%. It happened on Saturday night. They didn't even have to play that night. So the first Canadian team to clinch.
Easiest clinch.
Yeah. Oh, whatever. First Canadian team to clinch. First 100-point season in basically a decade since the 14-15 season. Check this out, though. The last time the Canucks hosted a playoff game was April 15th, 2015. Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson with Bruno Mars was your number 1 song on the Billboard chart.
It was giving it to you.
It's a good song, actually. I'm a big fan of Mark Ronson. Vasily Podkolzin was 13 years old. And I know this is one of your favorite films, and you love this one from the Furious series. Furious 7 was the box office number 1.
Oh, only 7. We weren't up to 28 yet? Oh, okay.
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I don't think I've watched a single one of those movies, so.
I hear it's about family.
See, I don't even know what that means.
I've never seen them, and that's the only meme I know of.
Okay. Well, there you have it. So that's the last time the Canucks hosted a playoff game. And of course, it rolls into the 100-point season as well. Now, a difference maker for the Canucks in the playoffs, we talked about this, but we've seen it firsthand now since he's been back, is Dakota Joshua. There's no arguing that. I mean, he just makes such a massive difference in just the way the Canucks play. He gets in on the forecheck. He goes to the net, which is something that Rick Tocchet has been preaching and I know they scored twice on the power play today, but Tocchet's talking about these broken plays and how he wants, more out of the Canucks in terms of broken plays and just trying to be less sort of sexy on the power play and more gritty, I guess you could say. Well, there's your guy. Dakota Joshua could be that guy, right? I know he's not on PP1. Perhaps he might find himself there at some point with the remaining games on the season. What's there, 8 left in the season now? So, maybe we'll see that from Dakota Joshua. We'll have to see. But man, what a difference he makes back in the lineup for the Canucks. And he creates those lanes as well. I know Tocchet talked about it in the JT Miller goal that Connor Garland set up. And everyone was praising Garland for that great work on the boards and the way he was spun out and just did that blindside backhand feed to JT Miller. But Tocchet talked about the fact that Joshua going to the net creates that lane for Garland to be able to get that pass through to JT Miller. So it's the little things, right? And we used to joke about that back in the day with Louis Eriksson, but Dakota Joshua now up to 15 goals on the season. And it's a little bit of flair there too in that first goal against the Ducks. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that Dakota Joshua has that in his game, but to see it firsthand, pretty impressed. It was against the Ducks, though. That defense is just absolutely awful. How about this, Aaron? Doing some TikTok videos this week and just sort of unpacking the positives and negatives after the Canucks lost to the Dallas Stars. And we've talked about the power play. And I mean, anyone that follows this team knows that it's just dipping really poorly since the All-Star break. But check this out. They were scoring 3.78 goals per game before the All-Star break. Like, obviously the best in the NHL. It's close to 4 goals a game. Now, going into the Anaheim game, they were 27th in the NHL since the All-Star break with 2.75 goals per game. So down a full goal. Now, there's some obvious reasons, I think, since the All-Star break. Like, teams are ramping up. The games are ramping up. I know a lot of people call it the dog days of the season, but it's really only the dog days for those that are kind of sitting pretty, right? Like, the Canucks knew that they've had their... I mean, eventually this was going to come. I mean, they clinched when they didn't even have to play, right? That was what kind of cushion that they had. But these other teams are trying to ramp it up, trying to get themselves into the postseason here. Look at a team like Nashville. Try to tell them it's the dog days of the season right now, right? As they climb themselves out of the hole and get into the postseason. So, yes, I get it. These games do ramp up a little bit. That's pretty drastic. And that tells you a lot about the Canucks being down a full goal since the All-Star. And maybe they were just... Maybe the PDO wave. Maybe they were just riding that PDO wave and eventually it had to come down. Sure, I'll take that argument as well. But a full goal since the All-Star break, and here you are now sort of ramping up to get into the postseason. And I don't know if you're hitting on full cylinders right now for the Canucks. They had 2 power play goals tonight, and I love this. This came from our buddy J Pat, who's always really good about digging up, exclusive sort of stats, like stuff that is very interesting.
He's into the numbers.
He loves the numbers, that guy. His dad was a mathematician. Versus Anaheim, it was the first game the Canucks had scored power play goals since Lindholm's debut, which was February 6th? Yes, it was.
Yeah.
February 6th. So the day after they got back from the All-Star break. Lindholm scores those 2 power play goals. Everyone's like, oh, we got Lindy. Here we go. Well, here we are, March 31st. So it took them like 6 weeks to be able to do that. I don't know, man. Again, these are glaring right now on things that the Canucks just have to get sorted going into the postseason. You got to have a good power play going into the postseason. You have to. And not being able to score multiple goals. And I mean, look at how many chances. What do they have today? Like Anaheim has got to be, I think they're the most penalized team in the league. Yeah, Canucks go 2 for 4 today. So there you have it. But again, that power play is something that they are just going to have to get sorted out going into the postseason if they're going to have any sort of success. Now, a big part of that could be Elias Lindholm, who's now missed his 3rd straight game. Canucks have been a little hush-hush about the injury, but as you know, it's Vancouver, like people try to figure stuff out. He skated before the Ducks game on Sunday, and cameras caught the right wrist pretty heavily taped. So, obviously Lindholm's battling through something, but I'm really curious about what Lindholm is for this Canucks team, because there's an argument that they haven't gotten better since he joined them, right? Like, he had those 2 goals, and what did he have? Another game, I think where he had multi-goals. But other than that, I mean, he found himself on a 3rd line, and that's all well and good if you're a head coach like Rick Tocchet, because you're sitting there going, well, look at me down the middle. I've got, Miller, Pettersson, Lindholm. Like, who's going to step up to that in the match game, right? And I do see that. But at the same time, too, has it given them any sort of advantage since he's been there? It's debatable. Record's hasn't been all that great since they got in from the All-Star game or All-Star break. But I mean, again, they built up such a cushion that they could allow themselves to have stretches where they, play 500 hockey or whatever it is. So it's interesting to see what Lindholm is going to bring for this Canucks, especially they got to get him healthy. The best part is they got time right now. But again, is he going to be a difference maker come the postseason? They paid a fee. That means he's got to be a difference maker come the postseason. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. But boy, a healthy Elias Lindholm could be a major factor for the Canucks in the postseason. Okay, a couple quick hitters here. Just wanted to mention that the Canucks signed the 4th round draft pick from the 2023 draft. He's a forward. His name's Ty Mueller. Plays down in NCAA hockey. Just, again, you guys know we're not the biggest prospects guys here on this pod, but I do like the fact that the Canucks are signing guys that they drafted. Drafting and developing. That is something that was key for the Penguins when Jim Rutherford was running the show there. And I think he's brought that sort of mentality, that philosophy into the Canucks organization with the Abbotsford Canucks. So good to see them signing up some of their draft picks, and we'll get a look perhaps at Ty Mueller. I did see 2, I believe it is Sawyer Minow. I think that's his name. He has joined the Abbotsford Canucks. So again, these drafted guys are going to be showing up here, and let's see if they develop and one day make it into the big club. All right, big week ahead. Tuesday at VGK, Wednesday at the Mullet, but it's the last back-to-back of the season for the Canucks. So we'll likely see another Seeloff sighting then. And then a big one, Saturday night in La La Land. And right now, if the Canucks, or if the playoffs started today, the Canucks would be facing off against the Kings. So again, perhaps a playoff preview of the first round with the LA Kings, but perhaps Tuesday is the playoff preview with the Vegas Golden Knights, because things are tight right now when it comes to that third spot and the final wild card. 3 points separating them. Vegas starting to hit a bit of a stride right now. They've won 2 in a row. LA just 6-4 in their last 10. So the Kings going the other way, but it looks like we've got the teams decided at this point. We recorded our last pod, almost a week ago today. It was Tuesday. We were a little bit late, but the gap, Aaron, between the outside team and the last wild card in the West was 5 points. Guess what it is right now?
2.
5 points. So there you have it. They're not moving anywhere. That's what I mean. Yeah. It's like, if you're St. Louis, if you're a St. Louis Blues fan, you're like, we're 7-2-1 in our last 10. We're getting there. And it's like, it's been a week, but guess what? You're still 5 points back. So that's Gary's NHL. With those loser points, it's hard to gain ground, but we'll recap it all and do it once again next week here on the Vancouver Hockey Show. I'm excited about this week, Aaron. I think it's going to be a good one for the Canucks as we get some quality opponents and see if the Canucks can dig in on the road, get themselves some W's.
Yeah, some games that aren't at home for once.
Yeah, exactly. A little too much home cooking. Want to get out on the road and see what else is out there.
Let the rookies pick up the check for once. Yeah.
Pod Coles is like, what the hell is this? I'm not a rookie. All right, for producer Aaron, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everyone.